Muruganar and Bhagavan had such a close relationship that Bhagavan would wait for him to arrive. The moment Muruganar walked in, Bhagavan would pose a question to him even before he could prostrate. Muruganar's senses and attention were always fully attuned to Bhagavan and his words. He would receive the question from Bhagavan and start answering while prostrating, lifting his head up like a chameleon. The devotees of Bhagavan called this lizard talk. Muruganar himself told me that sometimes this would go on for a long time, and he would not even realize that he was still lying down on the ground. Vishwanatha Swami once amused and asked him to stop this lizard talk, at least when he came to the old hall. Muruganar recounted, saying, "I knew that people were amused, but at the same time of prostrating, I was so absorbed in giving answers to Bhagavan that I would not be aware that I was lying on the floor. As I was lying down, my voice would not be clear, and Bhagavan would have to strain to listen to me. None of this mattered, because for me, nothing existed except the fact that Bhagavan had asked me a question and that I had to answer him." Sometimes when he was seated in front of Bhagavan, poetry would gush forth. Bhagavan would go up the hill or go to the cowshed. When he came back, Muruganar would still be seated, engrossed in his writing. Bhagavan would ask him a question and wait for an answer. He would stand next to Muruganar, who would be busily writing, and even answer his questions without realizing he was talking to Bhagavan. The others would be shocked, because according to Hindu tradition, it was a sign of disrespect for a disciple to be seated while his guru stood before him. Moreover, Bhagavan could not stand for long after the Pathala Linga cellar days. Muruganar tried to assist the management in Ramanasramam because it insisted that anyone living there or having meals there had to do some service. He tried his best but failed because he was so absorbed in his sadhana. Therefore, he finally had to move next door to Palakotu, the burgeoning sadhu community, and stay in someone else's veranda and beg for food to sustain his body. Bhagavan poured his grace on Muruganar all the time, but at the same time never interfered in the management of the ashram. On many days, the inspiration for writing poems was so strong that Muruganar would forget that he had not eaten and that it was time to go to bed. One day he had gone without food the entire day and hadn't eaten, and just then realized it. It was the festival of the Maha Shivaratri, a day on which Hindus observe a strict fast for 24 hours. When he went to Bhagavan the next day, Bhagavan gestured to him to accompany him around the hill. Muruganar followed him with enthusiasm, but was quickly fatigued because he was not hungry, having been without food for 2 whole days. After covering some distance, Bhagavan noticed Muruganar's tired face and inquired compassionately, "Did you not eat yesterday? Were you fasting because it was Shivaratri?" It was then that Muruganar remembered that the previous day had been Shivaratri. "Yes, Bhagavan, I haven't eaten." After their circumambulation of the hill, Bhagavan asked Muruganar to follow him and have a full meal at Ramanasramam. He also appointed one of his attendants to go into the kitchen and supervise the serving of food to ensure that Muruganar would have a good meal there. When Muruganar narrated this to me, he shed tears of emotion on recollecting the solicitude of the Master. Tears of joy had become an integral part of his incomparable devotee. However, this solicitude was an isolated incident. There are many instances when the opposite also took place. One day, the sub-registrar Narayana Iyer told me, it has also been written in an article published by the ashram that he and another devotee, T.P. Ramachandra Iyer, wanted an explanation from Bhagavan on the 6th verse of Bhagavan's 8 verses on Arunachala. When they entered the hall with the book open, they saw Muruganar prostrating before Bhagavan and taking leave to go into the town to beg. One of the attendants reported, "Bhagavan, we just ground a jackfruit to make a dessert for lunch. Muruganar gave us money for the bhiksha because it is his mother's anniversary. We feel terrible that Muruganar has to still go into town and beg." Bhagavan's expression changed, and he replied coolly, "Yes, whose responsibility is it to invite Muruganar to stay and eat with us? It is the duty of the authorities." Muruganar went to beg. The intention here is not to point out the harshness of the management, but to illustrate how Bhagavan was solely concerned with Muruganar's spiritual emancipation. Whether he had eaten or not, or whether physical comforts were available or not, was immaterial. Bhagavan's whole attention was focused on seeing that Muruganar led an austere life established in the truth. Muruganar is the link between Bhagavan, the truth, and us, ignorance. If it was not for his living example, we would have thought Bhagavan to be an unattainable ideal, like Buddha or Jesus Christ. Had Muruganar not lived a whole life of austerity, purity, and self-knowledge through self-inquiry, however much we try to intellectualize and understand Maharshi's teaching of self-inquiry as the direct path, we would have missed the point. Muruganar lived the teachings and showed us that though he was just like us, it was possible to lead a pure life totally dedicated to the teaching. And the Master poured all his grace on him. There are few more incidents to show us the closeness of Muruganar with Bhagavan. There was not only harsh discipline, but humor also in their relationship. Muruganar and Bhagavan would cut vegetables in the morning along with other sadhus. One day they were chopping spinach. Bhagavan was very careful to cut the root and separate the leaves from the stems. He cooked each part differently and made sure that nothing was thrown away. Bhagavan started talking about his days up on the hill, particularly about an ascetic lady who lived there as well. She was called Kirai Pati, meaning spinach granny, because she collected various kinds of spinach for cooking. Bhagavan narrated how knowledgeable she was about every herb on the hill, knowing its name, content, and benefit. When Bhagavan had finished, he observed that Muruganar's chopping of the spinach was shabby. Bhagavan wryly observed, "Your skill in chopping spinach is as striking as your success in running your household." Muruganar had run away from his family life and hence felt a bit hurt by Bhagavan's words. He then wrote a poem and placed it before Bhagavan, who was very amused on reading it. All the onlookers curiously asked Bhagavan what he was smiling at. Bhagavan read out the poem, which said, "O Ramana, you are an extraordinarily efficient person. Yes, why don't you then marry an equally efficient young maiden and set up home? Why should you be wandering around as a mendicant in a loincloth begging food when you could easily have set up an ideal household?" Bhagavan laughed heartily, and the others joined him in his joy. Once, an herbal oil was being made at the ashram. When it was ready, it had to be filtered by pouring it on a cloth spread across a large vessel. Bhagavan held the cloth and asked Muruganar to pour the oil into it with a ladle. Bhagavan was talking about these herbs, some of which could even make one disappear from one place and appear in another. So rapt was he by Bhagavan's stories that Muruganar continued to pour the oil without noticing that it had begun to overflow. Bhagavan was attentive and efficient, so he chided him, saying, "Stop, what are you doing? You are spilling the oil. You are so careless." Then, to pacify him, he added cajolingly, "Come now, take the spilled oil and smear it on your head. Who will give you such good, costly herbal oil? Go on, put it on your scalp." Muruganar's attention was still riveted on Bhagavan, and so, instead of taking the oil, he scraped up mud from the ground. Bhagavan quickly said, "Hey, stop. I asked you to put the oil on your scalp, not mud." This is the guru-disciple relationship. The guru's grace not only awakens the highest wisdom, but also oversees the welfare of the devotees at every level. By 1926, Muruganar had left his wife Meenakshi in Chennai to join the ashram. Gentle, innocent Meenakshi was an uneducated lady who had no means of supporting herself. Not knowing how to tackle the world, she would stay with her father for some time and then come to Tiruvannamalai to beg Muruganar to live with her. Whenever this happened, Muruganar would disappear up the hill, and it was always a tough task for even Bhagavan to find him. Each time he had to send 4 people after him for 3 whole days to bring him back. Finally, Bhagavan pleaded with Muruganar to comply with Meenakshi. Muruganar was so stubborn that he ran away to the hill once more. So Bhagavan found another way to soothe Meenakshi. He took special care of Meenakshi. When I met her, she told me of many instances of her direct experiences with Bhagavan. I requested her to put them all in writing, which she did in Tamil, in a notebook that is now in the archives of the ashram. One incident mentioned in the book particularly touched my heart. One day, Bhagavan asked Meenakshi, "Meenakshi, what can I do for you?" Meenakshi showed him her torn sari. "Bhagavan, look at my sari. What do I want? I want clothes and food to eat, which have been denied me because my husband is not taking care of me." Bhagavan was so moved that he said, "Meenakshi, I assure you that all your life there will not be a dearth of these 2 things, clothes and food." Bhagavan did not stop with just this verbal assurance. He sent Kunju Swami to the head of this Isyanya Muth in town to ask for a sari. A master in a loincloth who seldom asked anything for himself sent a sannyasin to another sannyasin to beg for a sari for a devotee's wife. He then offered it to her with the repeated assurance, "Meenakshi, you will be happy. You will be provided with clothes and food all your life." When Meenakshi narrated this to me in the 1960s, I started taking care of her. I would send her 2 saris every year. She was not a spiritually inclined person and could not stay in Ramanasramam. She preferred to stay in Chennai, so I arranged for her to be given food in 7 houses, 1 for each day of every week. When I came to know that Meenakshi was on her deathbed, I went to Chennai to spend some time with her. She blessed me profusely. I asked her, "Meenakshi Amma, how are you?" Her stomach was swollen. She said, "I am very happy." I could not believe her, but then she said, "Bhagavan is with me all the time and has fulfilled his assurance to me through you. I have no dearth of clothes or food, Ganesa. Bhagavan is God himself." Meenakshi could not have a happy life as Muruganar's wife, but she was always happy until her last moments as Bhagavan's pet child. It was a privilege for me to interact with her and be of some service to her. During Bhagavan's last days, Muruganar composed a poem every day, ending it with, "Bhagavan, you should live 100 years. Muruganar then trained a devotee, Padma Venkataraman, to sing these every evening in Bhagavan's presence. She later told me, Muruganar was very particular about correct pronunciation and using his exact words. One day, the song she sang had the words, Yana Bandara Nayaka, which in Tamil means, the custodian of the treasury of wisdom. While singing with emotion, she involuntarily sang Bokisham, which also means treasury, instead of Bandara. As soon as the singing was over, Bhagavan told an attendant, "Go and ask her if Muruganar used that particular word." Bhagavan knew Muruganar's style so well that he knew that Muruganar would not have used Bokisham there. Bhagavan was as particular as Muruganar that the exact word was used. All the devotees were distraught because Bhagavan was going to drop the body. They wondered what they would do without him physically being there before them. Under Muruganar's leadership, they sent a mission to Bhagavan to ask him for a message. Did Bhagavan not know what they were asking for? His last words were, "Put the teachings into practice." It was Muruganar who elicited from Bhagavan the direct teaching of wisdom through the 3 treatises mentioned earlier, and more importantly, Bhagavan's final message of putting the teachings into practice. Muruganar had written many verses on I am not the body. Yet when Bhagavan dropped the body, he could not contain his grief. He was inconsolable. Since 1956, I grew up quite close to Muruganar. I had completed my graduation and remained for 2 years in the ashram. I observed Muruganar, Devaraja, Mudaligar, Munagala, Venkataramaya, and a few other old devotees like Sub-Registrar Narayana Iyer. I was taken in by their pure living. And when I came back in 1960, this helped me dedicate myself to these old devotees. I could begin to see the depth of their understanding. Muruganar was still begging. Though he did not go to the town, he would come just before lunchtime to the ashram, stand at the entrance to the kitchen, and extend his upper cloth, and the cooks would put some food in it. I observed his movements, so silent and beautiful. On one of those occasions, I had a small camera. I said, "Swami." As he turned and looked at me, I snapped a picture. Muruganar blessed me, even though he reprimanded me later, saying, "Don't do it again." Vishwanatha Swami told me, "A scolding from great sages is much more powerful than their blessings." When Muruganar visited Bhagavan Samadhi, it was an elevating sight. He would seem that there was like walking on water, the worshipper lost in worship. I once asked him, "Muruganar Swami, what is your attitude when you come and prostrate here?" And he said, "There is only Bhagavan. There is nothing else." For him, there was only Bhagavan, no Muruganar, no Ramanasramam, not even prostration. Bhagavan was everything. Everything else was not. Muruganar was sometime resident at Madras, now Chennai. Once an admirer asked him how come such an outstanding devotee of Bhagavan was not a resident at the ashram. and he said, "Look here, where I am. That is Ramanasramam." I didn't know about Muruganar's two stupendous works then, the Ramana Sanidhi Mure and the Guru Vachaka Kovai, both edited and approved by Bhagavan. I had brought Muruganar into the ashram and was looking after him with some other friends. My sister would sing some of his songs, and he would often ask her to sing those from the Ramana Sanidhi Mure, hearing which he would be reduced to tears. On inquiring about the reason for his tears, he replied, "I was in the presence of Bhagavan one day, and he was looking at a girl child intently. I asked him, 'Who is this baby who has received so much of your grace and blessings?' Bhagavan replied, 'Do you not know? Idu Nama Lakshmi. This is our Lakshmi.' Muruganar then again shed tears and said that when Bhagavan uses the word our, it implied a shared spiritual experience. I asked him to tell me more about the Ramana Sanidhi Mure. He said, "When it was privately published, the management refused to sell it in the ashram. Many incidents of protest took place. It is good that you are not aware of them. But I want to tell you this. One day, I was very upset about this when I prostrated before Bhagavan. When I stood up, Bhagavan said, 'Have no worry, we will publish it ourselves.' I ran back to the office and tried to get a copy of the Ramana Sanidhi Mure, but couldn't find it. It wasn't available in the library either. I spoke to some devotees in Chennai and got a copy of the Ramana Sanidhi Mure and had it printed. When I presented it to Muruganar, his eyes moistened as he gratefully said, 'Look, Bhagavan has fulfilled his prophecy.' All of this happened a few weeks before Muruganar passed away. But before then, he told me about the Guru Vachaka Kovai, a book which had the Guru's sayings and which was edited and titled by Bhagavan himself. With great enthusiasm, the Guru Vachaka Kovai was also brought out by the ashram as its prestigious publication. My heart beamed with joy that Bhagavan's assurance, 'We will publish it ourselves,' was thus successfully fulfilled. When Muruganar was dying, the doctors said he was in a coma. Dr. Hugo Mayer sent word saying, 'His breathing will stop any moment. Come here quickly.' It was 3 a.m. I stood close to Muruganar. Hugo Mayer and the other doctors told me, 'He is in a coma. He is not going to respond to you.' 'No, I will sing the Arunachala Ramanalai,' I said firmly. Despite their repeated objections, I leaned close to Muruganar and whispered into his ear, 'Swami, I want to sing the Ramanalai.' The body was still, but his eyebrows went up. This was witnessed by the doctors. Maybe they were right too. The body was in a coma, but the heart, in its state of spiritual ecstasy, responded out of compassion by making the eyebrows move. We all sang it continuously. In a state of spiritual ecstasy, Muruganar merged with Arunachala. We carried his body out and laid it in the samadhi worthy of a sage or a saint. His samadhi shrine is situated between Arunachala and Bhagavan's old hall. On his samadhi day, puja is offered, and devotees chant the Ramanalai and sing selected verses from his Ramana Sanidhi Mure. The story of Muruganar is a never-ending one, because he is eternal like his master, his only God, whom he did not forget even for a moment, in whose glory and message he sang all his life.